It started with the cold. Not winter cold, but something deeper. Like the warmth had been pulled out of the air itself. I live alone in a small rented house at the edge of town. It's the kind of place where the walls are thin, and you can hear every sound from outside. Dogs barking, cars passing, kids shouting. Lately, though, it's been silent. Even the wind feels dead. I'm not close to anyone. My parents stopped calling years ago after I quit college. I work nights at a warehouse, and most days I sleep through the daylight. The only thing that keeps me company is the hum of the old heater near my bed. But about a week ago it stopped working. I tried fixing it, but it kept shutting off. The air kept getting colder, sharper, like something in the house didn't want me warm anymore. At first I thought it was nothing, just bad wiring, but now I'm not so sure. The cold started spreading, but not evenly. It felt like certain spots in the house were worse than others. The corner near the bathroom was freezing while the kitchen stayed almost normal. I'd see my breath hang in the air whenever I walked past the hallway, even though the rest of the room was fine. One night I woke up to a noise. It wasn't loud, more like a faint cracking sound. I got up thinking maybe one of the pipes had burst. When I turned on the light, I saw frost forming on the walls, thin lines of white running upward like veins. I touched it, and my finger burned from the cold. It didn't make sense. The house was sealed, no windows open, no drafts. Over the next few days, I tried to ignore it. I wore layers, slept with 2 blankets, even used my oven for heat. But every morning, more of the house was covered. My shoes froze to the floor one morning and I had to tear them off. It wasn't just temperature anymore. It was spreading like something alive, slow and patient. And for some reason, it felt like it was coming for me. Last night I couldn't sleep. The air was too still, too quiet. My breath came out in short, pale clouds, and the frost had reached my bedroom door. I could hear small sounds like glass cracking every few seconds. I stayed under my blanket waiting for morning, but it never came. The light through the window was gray, frozen in place like the sun had stopped moving. When I finally stood up, the floor was solid ice. The walls shimmered, covered in a smooth, perfect layer. I tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. My fingers stuck to the handle. I pulled away, skin tearing off like wet paper. I fell back gasping, but even the air felt too heavy to breathe. Then I saw it, my reflection in the ice, only it wasn't moving like me. It stared back, mouth closed, eyes wide. I blinked and the figure blinked a second later. I backed away, but my legs wouldn't move. The cold had reached my knees. Now I'm sitting in the corner watching the ice crawl toward me. It's quiet again, the kind of quiet that feels final. I think it's waiting for me to stop breathing. I first got sick 3 weeks ago. It started with a dull ache in my stomach, the kind you get when you've eaten something that's gone bad. I brushed it off, thinking it was food poisoning or maybe stress. My job at the call center had been getting worse. Long hours, too many angry voices. I didn't have much of a life outside of that place. He'd come home, heat up something frozen, watch a show until I fell asleep on the couch. It was a cycle. The sickness didn't stop. Every meal left me dizzy and weak. I'd wake up at night covered in sweat, my stomach twisting like it was trying to turn itself inside out. I went to the clinic near my apartment, but they said everything looked fine. The nurse suggested it might be anxiety. I knew it wasn't. This felt deeper, sharper, like something crawling inside me. After a few more days, I stopped eating altogether. I drank water and tried to rest, but even the water tasted strange, metallic, like rust. I checked the pipes, thinking maybe something was wrong with the plumbing. The tap water ran clear, but the smell was off. Faint, but there. I called the building manager. He said the pipes were new, that I was probably just imagining things. His voice had this tired tone, like he'd heard it all before. Maybe he had. That night, the stomach pain returned worse than ever. I was on the floor shaking, my mouth dry and eyes watering. I remember looking at the clock. It was 3:11 a.m. The whole apartment felt heavy, like the air itself was pressing down on me. I thought I was dying, but then as suddenly as it started, it stopped. I lay there, breathing slow, afraid to move. That's when I noticed the smell again. Not from the water this time, from the kitchen. It was faint but unmistakable. Rust, old blood. I sat up listening. The fridge hummed quietly. The clock ticked. Everything seemed normal. Still, something in me knew. Someone had touched my food. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning I threw everything in the fridge away. Every box, every can, every bag of leftovers. I wrapped it all in black trash bags and took it straight to the dumpster behind the building. The air outside was cold, but it felt good on my skin, clean. For a moment, I thought I'd finally done something right. I decided to buy new food from somewhere else, somewhere far. I walked instead of driving. Every time I turned a corner, I looked behind me. Nobody was there, but it felt like someone was watching. When I reached a small grocery store I'd never been to, I bought things I'd never eaten before. Oatmeal, soy milk, bread from a brand I didn't recognize. The cashier gave me a strange look, like she wanted to ask if I was okay but didn't. At home, I cleaned everything again. The counter, the pans, even the faucet handles. I cooked slowly, careful with every step, as if someone might be watching through the walls. The food tasted fine, normal. I even felt better for a few hours. But by midnight, I was back on the bathroom floor, body shaking, stomach emptying itself. It hurt so much that I screamed into the towel just to muffle the sound. The next day, I didn't eat. I went to work, pale and trembling, pretending I was fine. People stared but didn't say much. When I got home, I checked my front door. The lock was fine, the chain was fine, but the air smelled like metal again, like something had been disturbed. I started to notice other things too. Small things. The kitchen light flickered once every few hours. My bathroom mirror had a thin streak across it that hadn't been there before. My sink drained slower even though he'd cleaned it last week. I told myself I was just tired, that this was all in my head. But when I reached for my phone to order food, I froze. The last time I'd ordered delivery, I got sick right after. Someone was trying to poison me. Not randomly. Not for money. This was personal. I unplugged my fridge, threw out the rest of the food, and sat down at the kitchen table in silence. If they wanted me dead, they'd have to try harder. It's been 5 days since I've eaten. My body feels hollow, my ribs sharp under my skin. The water still smells like rust, so I collect rain in plastic buckets on the balcony. It tastes cleaner, but I don't trust it completely. Nothing feels safe anymore. Last night, I woke to a sound in the kitchen, soft, careful, like someone didn't want to wake me. I stayed still, breathing through my nose, waiting. The sound stopped, then came again, closer this time. I could hear the faint scrape of metal on metal. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would give me away. When I finally stood, the apartment was quiet again. I turned on the light. The floor tiles were wet near the sink. The cabinet door under it was open. I crouched down and saw something that froze me in place. A thin metal tube ran from the back of the pipe, tucked neatly into the wall. I hadn't seen it before. I don't remember calling the landlord. I don't remember running into the street barefoot. But I remember the taste in my mouth. Not rust this time, blood. I lived alone in a cheap apartment on the edge of town. Rent was late more months than not. My parents stopped calling years ago. I worked nights at a garage and slept in the day. My life was small and predictable. I liked it that way. No one to answer to. No one to disappoint. The town was the kind that forgot you if you blinked. Streets were empty by 10. Windows had a thin film of dust. My bed was lumpy but mine. I had routines that kept the edges from fraying. Coffee at 6, work at 7, TV until midnight, then sleep. I heard things a little different from other people. Sometimes strange images would come, uninvited, like a channel flipping in my head. Doctors called them episodes. Medication helped some nights and not others. The guts of me felt exposed sometimes. Not because anyone hurt me that day, simply because the world felt thinner, like a coat left in the rain. One winter felt colder than usual. The nights pressed at my windows like a hand. I told myself it was only weather. I told myself to lock the door and stay inside. Then the nights started to change in small ways. A siren that stopped just out of earshot. A streetlight that blinked twice and went out. A smell that passed through the hole and left no source. I noticed the rusted motel sign on the highway more than a person should. It flashed at me in my rearview mirror once, and then I blinked and it was gone. I would shrug and drive on. I would tell myself I was tired. I would tell myself the town was shrinking around me. I had learned to live with empty rooms and quiet dinners. I had not learned how to live with the feeling of being watched when the house was empty. One night I lay awake and listened to the radiator breathe. It sounded like another person living in the apartment. I told myself to sleep. I told myself tomorrow would be normal. Tomorrow never felt like it used to. It started with the cold. Not the kind that makes you shiver for a minute and move on, but the kind that sinks into your bones and stays there. No matter how high I turned the heater, my breath still fogged in front of me. The windows froze from the inside. The glass had fingerprints even though I hadn't touched it. I wiped them once, but they came back. Same shape, same place. That night I heard something move in the kitchen. Slow steps dragging across the linoleum. I waited for the sound to stop before checking, but there was nothing. No footprints, no open doors. Just my coffee cup on the table, still spinning. I tried to laugh it off. I even told myself it was just the meds again, but every time I looked toward the hallway, I could swear someone was standing there, not moving, not hiding, just waiting. I began leaving the lights on even while sleeping. Didn't help much. The shadows only got sharper, like they were learning my shape. Sometimes late at night I'd hear a knock on the door, soft, patient, like whoever it was knew I was afraid to answer. When I finally looked through the peephole, the hallway was empty, but the air felt different, heavier. I'd close the door and press my back to it until my heartbeat slowed. 3 nights later, I woke up on the couch. The TV was on, static humming. Someone had drawn a wet handprint on the screen. I stood up, dizzy. My phone was dead. The power flickered. And from outside, through the snow and darkness, I saw that same motel sign again, glowing faint red, the one I used to pass on the highway. But this time it wasn't miles away. It was across the street. I don't remember deciding to leave the apartment. I just remember standing in the hallway with my keys in my hand. The building was quiet, too quiet for the hour. Every door looked the same, but somehow I knew which one to walk toward, the exit. The wind outside didn't bite this time, it whispered. I followed it. The motel waited across the street, half buried in snow, the sign flickering weakly through the fog. Vacancy. The letters buzzed like flies trapped behind glass. Inside, the air felt old. Rotten carpet, cold light. No one at the desk, but a single brass key waited there. Room 9. The tag swung gently, though there was no breeze. I told myself I'd just look, that it'd prove to myself it wasn't real. But my feet moved on their own. Down the hall I counted 9 doors. The last one opened before I touched it. Inside, the room was dim, the wallpaper peeling like old skin. A bed waited in the center, the blanket pulled back like someone had just left. I stepped closer. The air shifted. Something moved under the covers. He was there. At first I thought it was a reflection, but reflections don't breathe. His body was twisted, broken in ways bones shouldn't bend. His eyes were wide, black, and shining from within, like there was a small fire trapped inside his skull. He reached for me slowly, like he'd been waiting for this moment. The smell of dust and decay filled my throat. When his hand brushed mine, it didn't feel cold. It felt familiar, a pulse faint, desperate. He whispered something, but his mouth was split too far to form words. It sounded like my name. I should have run, but I couldn't. The air held me still. He crawled closer, trembling, his breath breaking into quiet sobs. When he touched my face, I saw it, his bruised neck, the rope marks, the faint outline of my own fingers in his skin. The realization came like a flash of light behind my eyes. I knew him. I had made him. He wasn't a stranger. He was everything he'd buried. The nights, the guilt, the loneliness. He leaned close, his voice thin and trembling. You said you wouldn't leave me. The lights flickered once. Then everything went dark. When I opened my eyes, I was in my bed again. The heater hummed softly. Morning light slipped through the blinds. But there was something cold beside me under the blanket. Something breathing.